Hello, this is attorney Nicholas Hicks, and welcome back. We are beginning now with the series of videos that we're creating that's going to contain hopefully useful legal information as promised. I also decided not to make you wait until the blog and website is complete, which it is wrapping up and will be complete soon. But I decided to just start posting the videos to my Facebook family because someone may need that information right now. And so that's more important than having everything pretty and neat and tied up in a bow. These videos will be posted to my blog and website in the near future. So the first series of videos that we've created has to do with the area of family law. And of course, family law encompasses many issues, many subsections. And today we're going to talk to you for a few minutes about child support. We won't get everything done in the next 10 minutes or so, but hopefully the information will be useful. And of course, I welcome you back because we're going to continue the subject and talk more about it in our next video. So, in New York State, and by the way, everything that I'm going to discuss with you from this point going forward applies to the state of New York only. So if you are outside the state of New York, please don't assume that this applies to you or in your state, because the laws can be very different from state to state. The other thing is, I don't want you to try to apply this information to your particular circumstances, even if you live in the state of New York. That's the job of a lawyer. This is just for information purposes only, just to give you a feel for some of the issues that go on in the state of New York. But you should consult with an attorney to see how the law applies to your specific fact situation. Please don't take the advice of, my cousin had a situation like mine. A friend of mine told me, if your friend or your cousin or your colleague isn't a lawyer, I've seen a lot of people really get bad information and get horrible results because they didn't consult with a professional. Now, child support. To begin with, it's important to understand that in the state of New York, the ultimate test is what is in the best interest of the child. And it's important to understand that because litigants often feel that a court wasn't fair to them, or that they didn't get heard, or it's just injustice was done. But you must remember that because the test in New York State is what is in the best interest of the child, that means that the test is not what is in the best interest of mom, what is in the best interest of dad, grandma, granddad, or some other interested party. The focus is always what is in the best interest of the child. And so that's the guiding light, and that's important to understand that will shape ultimately and impact heavily what a decision of a magistrate or a judge might be. Now, before we talk about child support, the child support obligation, we must first talk about paternity, because it is the parents who are chargeable with the support of children. And so we must first establish who the parents are before we can get to the next step in talking about the support obligation. And when we talk about establishing a parent, what we're really talking about is paternity. Because, of course, mom knows who mom is, but the question sometimes is, who's the father? And so there is a number of ways that paternity can be established. The typical way is that an acknowledgement of a written acknowledgement of paternity is drafted. Usually that's signed in a hospital. Most people refer to it as, I signed the birth certificate at the hospital. Well, that's an acknowledgement of paternity. It's a legal document. Once that's executed, that legally establishes that person as the parent of that child. Now, the other traditional way that paternity is established is that, for example, mother will file a paternity petition in family court. alleging that a particular male is the father of the child. The male will be summoned to court. The support magistrate will ask the would-be father, the alleged father, whether he admits or denies paternity. If he admits paternity, then paternity is established at that moment, at that point, and then usually the next conversation is support, child support. If, on the other hand, the petitioner, usually the male, denies paternity, then the court will set up DNA testing and then take a look at the results when they come in. And of course, DNA testing has come a long way in recent years, and we can nail it pretty much on the head now, whether somebody is in fact the parent of a child. So those are the traditional ways that paternity is established, either by acknowledgement of paternity, usually signing the document at the hospital, or admission or acknowledgement of paternity in court. Now, this is interesting. A lot of people are not aware that there is a presumption when parents, when spouses, people are married, that when a woman conceives a child in the course of the marriage, the presumption is that that child is a child of the marriage, which is another way of saying that the child is also the child of the husband, even if that isn't so, which is to say that if the wife went out, for example, and had an affair and became pregnant by a different male, the law says that child is still the husband's, that the husband is legally responsible for the support of that child, unless, of course, this other male steps up and acknowledges paternity. Why, you say? Well, because, again, the test is what is in the best interest of the child. And New York says it is not in the best interest of the child that the child is not being supported, that a child is bastardized. That's the term that's used. I don't particularly care for it, but that we don't bastardize children. And so if, again, a wife becomes pregnant, even though she's pregnant by some other male, the husband is presumed to be the father of that child. And I can tell you, and I've seen it over the years, that there are many husbands out there, or ex-husbands now perhaps, that are forced to financially support a child that perhaps both parties acknowledge is not his. But unless someone else steps up to acknowledge paternity, it is often the case that the husband will be held financially responsible for that child. Now, there have also been situations where courts have said that a person is the psychological parent of a child, which is to say that although that person is not the biological parent of the child, although that person was not married to the mother, that is the only parental figure, the only father figure, for example, that child knows, and that it would not be in the best interest of the child to not have the support of that individual. So it is sometimes the case where a male has been in the child's life for so long that the court has decided that that person should be also financially responsible for that child. So that's an interesting fact. So again, these are ways that paternity can be established. Now, once paternity is established, the next thing that we look at is the support obligation. And in the state of New York, again, both parents are chargeable with the support of children less than 21 years of age. Now, we look at 21, and it's important to understand that because a lot of times people believe that the age is 18 because we hear that number all the time. 18 is the age of majority in the state of New York, which is to say that 18, a person who is 18 years old is no longer considered a minor. However, the child support obligation actually continues until the age of 21. There are some exceptions to that, and we'll talk about that. For example, if there's an express agreement between parents that support should continue beyond 21, and the typical situation is a child is in college, has not graduated yet, he or she is 21 years old. Parents may agree to support the child until he or she is 25 or some other age. But unless there's an express agreement, support will terminate at 21. Other ways that support can terminate sooner is, for example, if a child becomes emancipated. We'll talk more about that. Again, support typically lasts until a child is age 21 in the state of New York. So we're going to talk more about that in our next video. I hope that you found this information interesting. Stay tuned because I have a lot more to tell you about child support and how that obligation works in the state of New York. Thank you for listening. I am attorney Nicholas Hicks, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.